this lesson, we will go through another recap and work through an exercise to analyze and mitigate our results. We've now reached the stage where we can start running some what-if scenarios. We've looked at the risk exposure histogram and the tornado chart to give us help in fixing our plan. Now, remember that Monte Carlo analysis can be extremely sensitive to minor changes or discrepancies in a model. So, don't be too concerned if your analysis results differ slightly from mine. Our results should be close if you have built your model correctly. The idea is for you to become familiar with the methodology of the analysis process. So let's continue with the analysis of our EPC schedule. Select the Acumen icon in the top left and open EPC Plan from recent workbooks. Once the workbook is opened, click the S3 Risk tab. What we're going to do is compare different scenarios for our EPC schedule. Initially, we will have the original schedule without risk events, but with duration uncertainty. We'll refer to it as the original plan. Then, one with pre-mitigated risk events and one with some initial mitigation, but where we could add more mitigation later. Now, when we looked at our pre-mitigated plan, the project completion was going to be 74 days late. What we want to do is look at the same activity over different scenarios so that we can compare the different S-curves. So first, we'll bring up the histogram for the original plan, without risk events but with uncertainty. So we need to first run a risk analysis with duration uncertainty only. In the left-hand projects pane, highlight EPC schedule. You may need to expand the navigation pane on the left. Click the pull-down for Run Risk Analysis, then select the scenario for uncertainty only, no risk events. Then click the button for Run Risk Analysis. Select Activity A011 in the Activities pane to show the risk exposure histogram for project completion. You'll see that the P80 exposure due to duration uncertainty is 54 days. We're interested in the S-curve, so in the top menu, click the button for Add to Risk Comparison. Now click the right panel pull-down and select Risk Exposure Comparison. You will see our S-curve in the graph. In the lower graph pane, change the color to red if necessary by selecting a new color from the color palette. Then change its name to Original Plan. For this next step, we're going to run a risk analysis with duration uncertainty and unmitigated risk events. So click the pull-down for Run Risk Analysis, then select the scenario for Uncertainty and Risk Events, No Mitigation. Then click the button for Run Risk Analysis. Select Activity A011 to show the risk exposure for the project completion. You'll see that the P80 contingency is 74 days. We're interested in the S-curve, so in the top menu, click the button for Add to Risk Comparison. Now click the right panel pull-down and select Risk Exposure Comparison. You'll see our new S-curve in the graph. In our lower graph pane, change its name to Pre-Mitigated Plan. Now we want to save 74 days. This is the number of days that we want to recover. We want to compare the original and pre-mitigated curves. Now click your mouse at the 80% probability and you'll see that the variation of 20 days was caused by risk events alone. So 20 days were due to the risk register and 54 days were due to duration uncertainty. So we need to save more days. Now click the right panel pull down again and select Risk Drivers to view the tornado chart. Select the button for Schedule Contribution in the top menu. Then click the Configuration pull down in the top menu and change the setting for Calculate Risk Exposure at P80. Now we will look at our tornado chart and we will note that 42 days of our 74-day risk exposure at P80 were due to activity A160 site mobilization. Hover your mouse over the bar and you'll note that 36 days are due to duration uncertainty, 4 days are due to risk 5, and 2 days are due to risk 3. When we look at the activities list on the left, you'll see that the duration uncertainty slider for site mobilization is set to very aggressive. If we were to reduce this uncertainty to, say, aggressive, this would reduce our risk exposure. But first, we need to create a scenario of our current pre-mitigated plan. Then we will reduce the duration uncertainty in the scenario before running a risk analysis on the scenario. From the Build Scenarios drop-down in the top menu, select Create Copy. If necessary, expand the navigation pane on the left. You'll see that the EPC schedule scenario has been created and is visible in the Projects pane. Let's change its name to Initial Mitigation by editing its description in the lower Activities pane. Then click the Save icon at the top left. Now make sure that you highlight Initial Mitigation in the left pane. We're going to expand our Activities view so that we can display all of our activities. So click the button for Activity View in the top menu, then select Grouping Display Level 3. Now we've decided to reduce the duration uncertainty of site mobilization from very aggressive to aggressive. So scroll down to Site Mobilization and change its duration uncertainty slider to aggressive. Note that its Gantt bar changes to orange in color. Next, we're going to run a risk analysis to view the impact of this change. Click the pull down for Run Risk Analysis. Then make sure that you've selected Uncertainty and Risk Events, No Mitigation from the Scenarios group. Then click the button for Run Risk Analysis. Highlight the activity for project completion and look at the risk exposure histogram on the right. So, what is our new P80 contingency? The answer, 46 days contingency. What is the new P80 completion date? The answer, the P80 completion date is the 8th of February 2021. Then click the button for Add to Risk Comparison. Let's view our risk exposure curves. So click the button for the right panel and select the option for Risk Exposure Comparison from the drop-down. In the lower graph pane, rename the scenario curve to Initial Mitigation. For the moment, we don't need to see the original plan, so deselect its checkbox in the lower graph pane. Click the Variance tab and remove the variance for Originals plan. Next, check the variance by clicking on the 80% level in the graph. In the pop-up, add a finish variance at P80 from Pre-Mitigated Plan to Initial Mitigation and click OK. So, what is the variance? The answer? We saved 28 days by changing the duration uncertainty of site mobilization from very aggressive to aggressive. Now click the Variances tab and you'll note that our variance of 28 days for initial mitigation is shown. So here you'll see that we've just saved 28 days at 80% probability. Now let's have a look at the tornado chart for initial mitigation. Click the right panel and select risk drivers from the pull-down. Which risk driver now has the highest impact at P80 and what is the schedule contribution? The answer, Activity A160, Site Mobilization. The schedule contribution is Uncertainty, 11 days, Risk 5, 4 days, and Risk 3, 2 days. Now, the project team feels that we need to leave the setting for site mobilization as aggressive, so we'll need to look at other ways of mitigating our model. However, they agree that the duration uncertainty for Activity A110 contract process could be reduced from aggressive to realistic. Again, we need to create a scenario of our initial mitigation plan. Then we will reduce the duration uncertainty in the scenario before running another risk analysis on the scenario. From the Build Scenario drop-down in the top menu, select Create Copy. If necessary, expand the navigation pane on the left. You'll see that the EPC schedule scenario has been created and is visible in the Projects pane. Let's change its name to Second Mitigation by editing its description in the lower Activities pane. Then click the Save icon at the top left. Now make sure that you highlight Second Mitigation in the left pane. We're going to expand our Activities view so that we can display all of our activities. So click the button for Activity View in the top menu, then select Grouping Display Level 3. Now, we've decided to reduce the duration uncertainty of contract process from aggressive to realistic. So scroll down to Contract Process and change its duration uncertainty slider to realistic. Note that its Gantt bar changes to yellow in color. Next, we're going to run a risk analysis to view the impact of this change. Click the pull down for Run Risk Analysis, then make sure that you have selected Uncertainty and Risk Events, No Mitigation from the Scenarios group. Then click the button for Run Risk Analysis. Highlight the activity for project completion and look at the risk exposure histogram on the right. What is our new P80 contingency? The answer: 35 days contingency. What is the new P80 completion date? The answer: the P80 completion date is the 28th of January 2021. Then click the button for Add to Risk Comparison. Let's view our risk exposure curves. So click the button for Right panel and select the option for Risk Exposure Comparison from the drop-down. In the lower graph pane, rename this scenario curve to Second Mitigation. Next, check the variance by clicking on the 80% level in the graph. A pop-up will appear where you can add a finish variance at P80 from Second Mitigation to Initial Mitigation. Then click OK. So what is the variance? The answer: we've saved another 11 days by changing the duration uncertainty of contract process from aggressive to realistic. Now click the Variances tab and you'll note our variance of 11 days for Second Mitigation. So here you will see that we've now saved 28 plus 11 days of our 74 days at 80% probability. Now we're going to see if we can save some days by mitigating some of our risks. To do this, we're going to have a look at our risks in the risk register. But first, we want to identify risks with the highest schedule contribution. Make sure that Second Mitigation is highlighted in the left projects pane. Then click the right panel and select Risk Drivers from the pull-down. Then make sure that the button for Schedule Contribution is selected in the top menu. We should be viewing our tornado chart in the right pane. In the top menu, click the Configuration pull-down. Then select Mode and change the option to Events. In the tornado chart, we will now be viewing the schedule contribution for our risks. Let's focus on the top 5 risks and look at ways of mitigating them. The risks should be R5, R9, R2, R7, and R3. But firstly, we need to create another scenario to run this what-if analysis. We're going to base this scenario on the scenario for Second Mitigation that we created earlier. Then we will be able to determine if we've been successful with our mitigation. If necessary, expand the navigation pane on the left, then highlight Second Mitigation. Then, in the top menu, click the button for Build Scenario. From the drop-down, select the option for Create Copy. You'll see our new scenario in the Projects pane. In the lower Activities pane, rename the scenario to Risks Mitigated. Then click the Tab key. Make sure that this new scenario is highlighted, then minimize the navigation pane again. Next, click the button for the left panel and select Risk Register from the pull-down. Now, when we first imported our risk register, you'll remember that I'd already included possible mitigation actions for each of the 10 risks. So, in the mitigation group, select the checkboxes to enable risks R5, R9, R2, R7, and R3. If we then look at the mitigated group, you'll see that their scores have reduced significantly. Therefore, there is an opportunity for mitigation of our risk exposure. Let's go ahead and run a risk analysis based on these mitigations. But first, we need to change a setting for our risk analysis. We need to include the risk mitigations. In the top menu, click the pull down for Run Risk Analysis. Then in the Scenarios group, select the option for Uncertainty and Risk Events, Mitigated, excluding overhead. We need to select this option because we have mitigated some of our risk events. Then click the button for Run Risk Analysis. In the right pane, you'll note that the P80 contingency in the risk exposure histogram has reduced to 27 days. There is now a 39% chance of meeting the deterministic date. Click the button for Add to Risk Comparison. Let's look at our risk exposure comparison curves. So click the right panel button and select Risk Exposure Comparison from the pull-down. You'll see the S-curve for risks mitigated, so go ahead and change its name to Some Risks Mitigated. Next, check the variance by clicking on the 80% level in the graph. In the pop-up, add a finished variance at P80 from Some Risks Mitigated to Second Mitigation, and click OK. In the lower pane, select the Variances tab. So, what is the variance between Some Risks Mitigated and Second Mitigation? The answer? 8 days. How many days of contingency have we recovered so far? The answer? 28 plus 11 plus 8 days equals 47 days. So, in total, we've saved 47 days out of our worst case of 74 days, shown in the pre-mitigated position. Once we have exhausted all of our options for mitigation, we will need to look at strategies for saving the remaining 27 days, such as changing schedule logic, changing scope, or acceleration. Click on the Acumen icon at the top left and close the drop-down. Make sure that you save the workbook. In the next lesson, we will introduce cost risk analysis. In this lesson, we're going to introduce cost risk analysis. In Acumen Risk, cost risk models are developed in the same manner as schedule risk models. We will have our original or base cost model, and then we will add uncertainty factors and risk events as we did with schedule risk. So the process for running a cost risk analysis in Acumen Risk is create or import a cost estimate into Acumen Risk, assign cost uncertainty to the risk model, overlay the time impact onto the cost uncertainty, add discrete risk events to the cost risk model, run the pre-mitigated cost risk analysis, run a risk workshop to analyze the exposure chart and risk drivers, then evaluate possible mitigations. Then add mitigations and run the cost risk analysis. Update the cost estimate, then publish the cost risk analysis results. If you look at your Acumen workspace, you will see that no workbooks are currently open. In the left projects pane, the default workbook 1 will be displayed, but will contain no projects. So the first step for a cost risk analysis will be to create or import our cost data. In Acumen Risk, we can create a cost model in a number of ways. The first way is within the S1 Projects tab. So click S1 Projects. In the top menu group for Get External Data From, select the pull down for Microsoft Excel. You will have 4 choices, but we are only going to work with standard Microsoft Excel file. The first row will contain header and attribute information, followed by rows which contain data for each activity in the Excel file. We can also create cost estimate. This option will allow us to build a custom cost estimate within Acumen Risk. The second way is from within the S3 Risk tab. However, for this method to become available, we must make sure that a workbook is already open in the Projects pane. So click on the Acumen icon and open My Risk Workbook from recent projects. Then click the S3 Risk tab and in the top menu you will see a button for Create Cost Estimate. Click the lower part of the Cost Estimate button to open a drop-down. Here you will note that we have three options. Create Cost Estimate. This option is exactly the same as our option in the S1 Projects tab. Generate from Schedule. This will generate a cost estimate from a schedule with or without a time overlay. And Import Cost Estimate using Excel. This allows you to create an estimate directly within Excel. Let's go back to the S1 Projects tab and work through an example where we will import a file directly from Microsoft Excel. So in the Projects pane, we have the MyRisk workbook containing initial plan and MyRisk, plus two scenarios that we created earlier. Let's just delete Scenario 1 and Scenario 2 because we don't need them anymore. Right-click on Scenario 1 and select Delete from the pull-down. This will also delete Scenario 2. Then click the pull-down for Microsoft Excel and choose the first option, Standard Microsoft Excel File. In the Acumen Samples folder, navigate to the Sample Cost Risk file. Then click Open. A dialog window will open where we can choose the worksheet, fields and delimiters. So highlight Cost Risk Sheet in the top pane. In the lower pane, we can choose to build our WBS hierarchy. This is optional, but I always like to have the WBS hierarchy defined. So select this option. Next, for our ID column, choose ID. Then for our hierarchy, select WBS. We want to build our hierarchy by WBS. Lastly, for the delimiter, select a period. Then click OK and you will see the unlinked cost risk sheet in the Projects pane. Click the button for Import All Projects and the file will now be imported. You will receive a warning message that says, "A project containing scenarios cannot be re-imported. Would you like to remove the scenarios and re-import initial plan? If you cancel, the scenarios will be kept and the project will not be re-imported." We don't need to re-import our project, so just click Cancel. You'll see that we now have the initial plan, MyRisk and Cost Risk Sheet in the Projects pane. Let's save the workbook as My Cost Workbook. So click the Acumen icon and choose Save As. In the browser window that opens, change the name to My Cost Workbook and click Save. Next, highlight the Cost Risk Sheet, then select the S3 Risk tab. You'll see the Cost Risk Sheet in the Activities pane. Click the Activity View pull-down in the top menu and select Grouping Display Level 4. Now, select the WBS element at the highest level. Set the Cost Uncertainty slider to Aggressive. Then note that all the children will become aggressive. Now scroll down to the Sub-C WBS element and set it to Very Aggressive. Then note that only Sub-C's children have been affected. Next, we'll create a new risk and assign it to Platform. So click the button for Left Panel and from the drop-down select Risk Register. Now change the name of the new event to Resource Unavailable. Give it Very High Probability, High Scheduled Impact and High Cost Impact. Then click the drop-down for Right Panel and select Activities. Change the activity display level to 2 by clicking the Activity View button and selecting Grouping Display Level 2. This will be sufficient to see all of our WBS elements. Make sure that the risk is selected in the Risk Register pane. Then click the checkbox for Platform in the right pane. Now we can run a risk analysis. Click the Run Risk Analysis drop-down and make sure that the scenario setting is Uncertainty and Risk Events, No Mitigation. Then click the Run Risk Analysis button to run the analysis. In the right pane, you will see the risk exposure histogram. highlight the WBS element for subsea. In the graph space, click on 80%. In the pop-up window, select Add a P80 value to the Activities view and Risk Exposure. Click the mouse button on the P80 value and you will note that its P80 value is 2.786 billion. Now let's add a P80 contingency. So click on the 80% mark and from the pop-up window, select Add 80% Contingency. You'll see that our P80 contingency is 0.54 billion. Now, in the right panel pull-down, select Risk Drivers. In the right-hand pane, you will see the top cost contribution drivers. Currently, the top driver is procurement and is due to uncertainty only. Click on the Configuration pull-down and set the p-value to calculate risk exposure at P80. Now, select the WBS element for platform. This time, the main P80 risk exposure driver is mobilization fee. So you can see that the methodology for analysis is the same as for schedule risk analysis. Click the Save icon on the top left to save the workbook. Okay, next we're going to create a simple custom cost estimate. So click the S1 Projects tab again. Then click the Microsoft Excel pull-down from the top menu and select Create Cost Estimate. This will create a new Excel file called Cost Estimate. Highlight this file in the left Projects pane and you'll see that a blank unpopulated cost estimate sheet will be shown in the main window. Let's add some simple data. Click on the description field and call it Feed. For actual cost, make it 1.5 million, and for remaining cost, enter 3.5 million. So the total cost will be $5 million. Now, click the S3 Risk tab to view our data. Click the plus sign to the left of the root WBS element to expand by one level. Now highlight the feed activity, then drag the cost uncertainty slider to the right and make it aggressive. If you scroll over to the right, you'll note that the minimum, most likely and maximum fields have been calculated, depending on the cost uncertainty slider. So we could continue in this way to develop our cost estimate. Now click the drop-down for the Create Cost Estimate button. The second option allows us to generate a cost estimate directly from a schedule. So, in the left-hand Projects pane, highlight the schedule for Initial Plan. Then click the Create Cost Estimate drop-down. Select the option for Generate from Schedule and a secondary menu will appear. Here you can choose to create a cost estimate with or without a time overlay. Select the option to generate a cost estimate with overlay. You'll see that an Initial Plan cost file has been created. Now highlight this file and look at the overlay icons. Click the Activity View drop-down and select Grouping Display Level 4. You'll note that all of the cost activities have been overlaid with the schedule activities. Now if you select Generate without overlay, the cost estimate will be generated without a schedule overlay. Click the Activity View drop-down and select Grouping Display Level 4. You'll note that none of the overlay icons are bold. Now let's look at creating a cost estimate directly from within Excel. Make sure you are in the S3 Risk tab. Then in the top menu, click the pull-down for Import Cost Estimate using Excel. This will open up an Excel template where you can create your own Microsoft Excel file that can be imported into Acumen Risk once it has been created. The first page of the template gives explicit instructions how to proceed. So we would enter all of our data into the template fields. Then once completed, we would save the template as an Excel XLS or XLSX file. Then, to re-import our new cost estimate, we would select the S1 Projects tab and click the Microsoft Excel drop-down. Then we would choose Standard Microsoft Excel File. Navigate to our file and click Open. The file will then be open for editing and risk analysis in the S3 Risk tab. Don't save our workbook, so simply close it. In the next lesson, we will learn how to merge a schedule with a cost estimate, ready for an analysis.